Well, welcome by Zoom to Iowa City City Council formal meeting for April 7, 2020. It is 7 p.m. And I'm going to have roll call, please.
Burgess.
Here.
Mims.
Here.
Salee.
Here.
Taylor. I think she's muted.
Here.
Teague.
Here.
Thomas.
Here.
Weiner.
Here.
All right. So my lights go off if I don't move around for a little bit. All right. Well, thanks. And welcome to the meeting via Zoom to everyone here. This is our second time having a Zoom meeting, and it's very different, but it went well as far as electronically the last time, and hoping that tonight goes the same way. So I just wanted to also give a little heads up as to how we will move forward with community time. So at the bottom of your screen, there's a black section. And if you hover over that, you'll see a chat button as well as reaction. So if you want to chat to let us know that you want to say something or communicate with the host, you can utilize that button. If you would like to speak on a particular item, if you go over the reactions button and raise your hand or thumbs up, or it's a sign of a wave, then we'll know that you want to speak on an item. For those on the phone call, you can press *9, and that will raise your hand to let us know that you would like to speak on the item. We also recommend that everybody mute their phones as well as their screens. And on the bottom left, you'll see a mic, and you can press that on your computer screen, or on your phone, you can mute yourself by pressing *6. So I may review this a few times as we go along. All right. So we have some proclamations, and I have to switch screens, forgive me. Okay. All right, so the first proclamation is Arbor Day. Whereas the coming of spring produces a renewal of interest in tree plantings for beauty, shade conservation, and many other purposes beneficial to all people. And whereas the observation of Arbor Day has long been characterized by the planting and preservation of trees, and whereas trees in Iowa City beautify our community, increase property taxes, increase property values, reduce pollution, lower energy costs, and enhance the economic vitality of business areas. And whereas because trees absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen, having a diverse and healthy tree population constitutes a major part of Iowa City's efforts to mitigate against climate change. And whereas trees can produce natural air conditioning, the evaporation from a single tree can produce the cooling effect of 10 room-sized air conditioners operating 20 hours a day. And whereas evergreen trees can be used to reduce wind speed and thus loss of heat from our homes in the winter by as much as 10 to 50%. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim April 24th, 2020 to be Arbor Day in Iowa City, and I hereby urge all citizens to participate in tree planting and preservation projects throughout the year. And here to receive this is our Parks and Recreational Director, Julie Seidel Johnson. And are you there, Julie?
Mayor, I don't think Julie's on the call right now, but I'll gladly accept on behalf of the Parks and Recreation staff.
Great, thank you so much. And I have asked Councilor Taylor to read the proclamation from Fair Housing Month.
Whereas April marks the 52-year anniversary of the passage of the Fair Housing Act of 1968, which seeks to eliminate discrimination in housing opportunities and to affirmatively further housing choices for all persons. And whereas the ongoing struggle for dignity and housing opportunity for all is not the exclusive province of the federal government. And whereas vigorous local efforts to combat discrimination can be as effective, if not more so, than federal efforts. And whereas illegal barriers to equal opportunity in housing, no matter how subtle, diminish the rights of all. Whereas the Iowa City Human Rights Commission fully supports the intent and purpose of the Federal Fair Housing Act, the State of Iowa Fair Housing Act, and Iowa City Fair Housing laws, and follows policies and practices in order to achieve their goal. Now, therefore, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, does hereby proclaim the month of April 2020 as Fair Housing Month and encourage all to abide by the letter and spirit of the Fair Housing Act.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor, for reading that.
Sure.
And we have the Human Rights Commissioner, Jessica Andino.
Yeah, so I thank Mayor Teague and the entire City Council for the opportunity to accept this proclamation on behalf of the entire Human Rights Commission. I just have a few words, if that's okay. Mainly, I just want to talk that human and housing rights are more than just the access to shelter. Rather, there are a multitude of indivisible, interdependent, and interrelated human rights as adequate housing, access to safe and healthy environment, affordability in housing, and the right to freedom from discrimination and access to housing and related services based on sex, race, ethnicity, or any other status. One is given the right to choose one's residence and to determine where and how they live. More so, the human right to fair housing is a social determinant. We as a community must focus on fair housing in order to protect the human rights of all of our residents and in order to reduce health disparities here. Housing rights are human rights, and I am grateful to live in a community that has a city council which supports not only proclamations but also actions to sustaining fair housing for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. 2C proclamation is Marriage Equality Day. Whereas from the very beginning of our nation, a bedrock principle of our society has been has been that we are all created equal. And whereas while not everyone has historically been treated equally in practice, as time passes, we persist in the quest to continually improve the condition of all. And whereas love is one of the most fundamental of human emotions, often publicly memorialized by marriage, which also confers societal protections and advantages not enjoyed by unmarried couples. And whereas in the words of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Kennedy, no union is more profound than marriage, for it embodies the highest ideas of love, fidelity, devotion, sacrifice, and family. And forming a marital union, two people become something greater than one once they were. And whereas on April 3rd, 2009, the Iowa Supreme Court chose love over bigotry and decided that the Iowa Constitution gave same-sex couples the right to marry. In Barnum versus Brian, this is slightly more than 6 years before the U.S. Supreme Court and Arbor versus Hodges found that same right in the United States Constitution. And whereas this year marks the 11th anniversary of that Iowa Supreme Court decision that allowed the freedom to marry the person one loves, which is surely an unalienable right, as sacred as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, therefore, I, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim April 3rd, 2020 to be Marriage Equality Day. And to receive this is going to be Human Rights Commissioner Kathy McGinnis.
Thank you, Mayor Teague, and thank you to the council members. I am honored today to accept this proclamation on behalf of the Iowa City Human Rights Commission, because what could be a more basic human right than the right to love and commit to the person of your choice and have that commitment publicly recognized? It's important to take this opportunity to recognize that when the 7 Iowa Supreme Court justices unanimously ruled that it was unconstitutional to limit the definition of marriage to opposite-sex couples, they were doing what was right, and they were, and they were leading the country in doing so. In the Varnum versus Bryan ruling, the court concluded that, and I quote, "The legislature has excluded a historically disfavored class of persons from a supremely important civil institution without a constitutionally sufficient justification." So on this 11th anniversary of this ruling, thank you for again shining a spotlight on the importance of recognizing all relationships as equally valid and important. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Proclamation 2D is National Service Recognition Day, and I've asked Councilor Taylor to read that as well.
Whereas AmeriCorps participants address the most pressing challenges facing our cities and communities, from supporting veterans, youth, and other underserved populations by promoting and mentoring healthy lifestyles. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve, as well as the community members they are serving. And whereas AmeriCorps participants service in more than 60,000 locations across the country, including organizations in Iowa City, helping to bolster the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve with both through their direct service and through management of millions of additional volunteers. And whereas the Corporation for National and Community Service shares a priority with mayors nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, City of Service, and mayors across the country to recognize the impact of service of the Day of Recognition for National Service on April 7th, 2020. Now, therefore, Bruce Teague, Mayor of Iowa City, does hereby proclaim April 7th, 2020 to be National Service Recognition Day in Iowa City, Iowa, and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our city, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities.
Thank you for that reading. And to receive it, this proclamation today is going to be Volunteer Management Vista at the Shelter House, Anthony Forchetti.
Right. Thank you. I'm also joined here by Katie Dillon and Gina Woolsey, the other two AmeriCorps Vista members at Shelter House, and I believe Katie has something prepared.
Hi, thank you so much for the recognition of service. As you mentioned before, national service and volunteerism is critical to our neighborhoods, and it strives to address issues that otherwise might get lost in the busyness of our everyday. I'm honored to be able to serve and to be able to represent other AmeriCorps members here in Iowa City and all across the country. I'm very grateful to take these experiences with me to push me towards my professional goals, but most importantly, I hope to always utilize my newfound knowledge, unique experiences, to better serve those around me. I would like to urge everybody to find even small ways to serve the community, especially now as the whole world is facing a new and unique challenge.
Thank you so much. And thanks to all of you for being a part of this today. We're going to move on to our consent calendars, which is items 3 through 8. Could I get a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended? Moved by Salih.
Second by Taylor.
Seconded by Taylor. Discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes?
Thomas. Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. All right. So we are at item 9, which is our community comment, where anyone that would like to address an item that is not on our agenda, now you're welcome to do that. And we'll ask you to keep your comments 3 to 5 minutes. We've had no names submitted, so I wanted to make sure that no one is on the phone that wanted to have a comment during community comment section. Hearing none, I'm going to move on to item.
Oh, sorry, this is Matt Krieger. I did want to provide public comment.
Is that I do know that I have you for item number 10, which is going to be the Mid-American.
Okay, so you're doing comments on each specific agenda item. Got it. Thank you.
Yes. So this is for any comments that are not on our agenda item. So hearing there are none from the community, I'm going to move on to item number 10, which is the lease agreement with Mid-American Energy Company for a solar energy system at Waterworks Prairie Park. Resolution approving the lease of land at the Waterworks Prairie Park Mid-American Energy Company for a large-scale solar energy system. I'm going to open the public hearing, and I will have staff at this time, Jeff Rowan.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Teague and council, members of the public. This is an item that was deferred from your March 24th item, or March 24th meeting. And so I won't give the same overview that I did at that meeting. The staff report is available, and I'm happy to go back and answer some of those questions. But I did put a supplemental memo in the packet to try to address some of the concerns that we heard leading up to today. And I'll just take a couple minutes to walk through that. And then I know that the folks from Mid-American are on the line. They're not planning to present tonight, but for your benefit, they're here to answer any questions that you may have. So again, to clarify our goal here, this project is certainly rooted in our climate action plan and was identified as one of the 64 actions in our 100-day report that you just considered at your work session. But the goal from this project has been to seek the coexistence of a large-scale solar with the prairie environment that we have at the Waterworks plant at the Waterworks Prairie Park. And so in the memo, I gave an example of a project up in Minnesota that we've looked to, and just reference that if you look into solar prairie developments, you'll see a number of states and utility companies are promoting the coexistence of both solar and prairie. So that's definitely our intention here. Mid-American and the city are working with Applied Ecological Services, who is our natural areas consultant and has been since we did our master plan. We started that process back in 2016. So they're very familiar with our existing prairie and are here to guide us on how to successfully restore the prairie on this site should this project move forward. Mid-American has estimated that just less than an acre of the prairie will be permanently removed, and this is necessary to actually support the panels. So think about the footings for the panels that will be there, and also the maintenance drive that's needed to come in off the trail. Mid-American has indicated a willingness to pay a fee to restore that prairie elsewhere in the community, and that's detailed in the memo. So much like the tree mitigation fee that's detailed in the lease, they are certainly willing to help compensate the city so that we can restore the lost acre or less than acre of prairie elsewhere in the community. And again, should the project move forward, we would combine that into our existing efforts, which I'll describe in a little bit. There's been some questions about the industrial use within the park. So, and our goal is certainly to keep the peaceful, tranquil environment that's at the park, and we think that that can be done even with incorporating solar. Much like the water treatment plant that is situated there successfully coexists within that park. The water plant is operated and staffed 24/7, 365 days a week, has 2 significant large sludge lagoons, a parking lot, and takes commercial deliveries on a regular basis. And so there's already pretty heavy commercial activity or industrial activity that takes place in the park. This would be a much lower maintenance type of industrial use. And again, we think with proper care and planning that it can just as the water plant does, blend in with the park very nicely. There's been a lot of comments about the airport and other locations. First, I just want to make the point that this is not the city's only desired location for solar. We envision, in order to achieve your aggressive goals for climate action, that we may need multiple large-scale solars, whether that's partnering with energy companies or taking that on ourselves at some of our more energy-intensive facilities. That certainly may be something we need to pursue. We also want to pursue small-scale solar and solar that's owned on people's homes and on businesses and on city facilities. And I think the council's aware of the city facility efforts that we have underway. The airport is a desired location for solar, and the Airport Commission has expressed interest in solar. It's not an either or in our mind. It's a both and plus some in our mind as city staff. The airport project is a lot more complicated than this one. And you heard that from Mid-American. You not only have the FAA regulations that have to be navigated, but the airport is in the 100 and 500 year floodplain. And that will make construction a little bit more difficult and a little bit more costly in that location. Much of Waterworks Park is also in the floodplain, but this particular leased area that we are looking at here, these 19 acres roughly, is not in the 100 or the 500 year floodplain. There's a little bit on the the northwestern edge of that leased area that gets in there, and the solar panels are brought in from that edge, but otherwise this sits outside that floodplain. And that can be verified through looking at the aerials of the 2008 flood. Again, the airport is in the 100 and 500 year floodplain, making it a little bit more complicated and costly, but certainly doable. And it's certainly a project worth pursuing and that we would like to pursue down the road. I mentioned in the memo, we'd also like to look at possibilities for large scale solar at our wastewater, at our landfill, at a number of other properties that we have. And that's certainly part of the climate action plan marching orders that the council has given us. I'd like to step back a little bit also and provide some context on the city's natural area efforts. So back in 2016 and 17, we did a comprehensive inventory of our natural areas with the help of our consultant that I mentioned earlier. That inventory determined we have 430 acres of forest, 188 acres of prairie, and 79 acres of wetland. As detailed in the memo, we are trying to be aggressive in expanding those natural areas. So in 2019, last year, we added 25 acres of prairie. The locations of those additions were City Park, Hickory Hill Park, Ryerson's Woods, Napoleon, and some property that we have out on Sloth Hour Road. In 2020, soon before the council at an upcoming meeting, you will be asked to approve a contract for more prairie establishment. Our staff is pulling that together currently. We project 86 acres of new prairie to be established in the community. And that would be dispersed over 18 locations, with the most significant additions at Hunter's Run Park, City Park, Scott Park, Sturgis Ferry, and Willow Creek Park. Again, it'd be 18 locations, but all of those that I just mentioned would have prairie of 5 acres or more added to them. So I think it's important to know that we do not have a disregard for prairie. We value it very much, and we wouldn't be pursuing this project if we didn't think that we could successfully marry the solar project with prairie. That said, there is no doubt that the prairie will need to be disturbed and replanted, and it's going to take several years to reestablish it. That's absolutely the case there.
That's been happening on the Zooms that aren't secure.
Oh,
You have to have a secure Zoom site to avoid that, and there's steps you can take on the Zoom site to do that.
Yeah, just give us 1 minute here, and then we'll start back up.
And it's chiefly a matter of assigning a password to the site.
It was more than that, actually, but
You should be able to set it so that only the host can share his screen.
right, there's settings on Zoom that you can use to stop that.
Okay, I apologize for that. Hopefully our hosts here are able to take those steps needed here. I'm going to pick back up with the natural areas. So again, 25 acres last year, 88 acres this year. And we'll continue to try to be aggressive with that going forward. Again, looking at this project, we will lose 1 acre, but we will be able to make that up with our 2020 plan. And again, over time, restore the prairie underneath the solar panels to the quality of the prairie that we have there today and that so many people do enjoy. I do want to talk about the context with the climate action plan. Again, this was one of 64 actions in our plan, something that we've been working towards for many months now. 3 megawatts is a lot of renewable energy, and certainly small scale solar plays an important role in our plan, and renewables play an important role. But it is hard to duplicate or replicate the benefits that we would get from a project of this scale. I put a couple of those examples in the memo, including the rough equivalent of 580 single family homes is what would be generated from this project on an annual basis. This project would provide enough energy to meet 170% of our needs at the water treatment plant. Our water treatment plant is the city's second highest emitting facility next to our wastewater plant. So to be able to provide the equivalent of 100% of the electricity used by that facility, and then 70% on top of that is a significant amount for us. The partnership to green the energy supply is important. Again, the city has limited funds that we can use. The council did elect to use the emergency levy going forward, which will generate $1 million in property tax revenue for our climate action plan. But a project of this nature to generate the level of electricity that we're talking about is estimated by Mid-American to be $6.1 million. And while it's very difficult to give you precise numbers, if we were to try to replicate that project ourselves through a solar on your home type of project, and if the city were to carry that cost, even using the current tax credits, assuming that we could do that this year, which wouldn't happen, but assuming that those tax credits would stay in place, we'd be looking at roughly a $9 million cost to be able to do that. again, those are rough estimates using the best data that we have available to us. So again, I think I'd just like to stress that this project does not represent our sole strategy for climate action. It's one piece. It's a very important piece of that, but it shouldn't be interpreted as this is the only city's strategy. We need utility scale solar. We need small scale solar. We need energy efficiency measures. We need to plant more trees. We need to expand our natural areas. We need a lot of community education. We need enhanced regulations. We need all these things. The goals that you have set, which are based from the IPCC, are very aggressive goals. And it's going to be very difficult for us to get there without incorporating utility scale solar projects and helping our energy suppliers green their overall supply to the community here. So while staff recognizes the very legitimate concerns that have been raised and that you see in your packet and the late handouts, we do feel that we could successfully execute on this project and create an environment that is just as cherished as the one is today. And with that, I'll stop and be able to answer any questions that you have. And again, remind you that Mid-American Energy is here to answer questions as well.
Jeff, do you have any sense of what role utility scale solar will play in terms of our plans to be basing our electricity on renewables? In other words, how many megawatts, for example, do you think need to be generated through utility scale solar to meet our goals?
Well, I don't have an exact megawatt answer for you, John. I don't know what that would be. I think we see the potential for 2 to 3 type of projects when we're projecting out to those 2030 or 2050 goals that we've set. Again, whether that's a second partnership with Mid-American or Eastern Iowa Light and Power, or it's our own large-scale solar, say down by the wastewater plant, which is our again largest electric consuming facility. But I don't have an answer for you in terms of how many megawatts we need.
Jeff, in terms of the location of this particular project, from Mid-American's presentation last meeting, and then how you were articulating offsetting the wastewater plant usage at this location, can you clarify, or maybe Mid-American can clarify, the use of this renewable energy locally versus just being placed onto the grid, and kind of how that works?
Yes.
Jeff, this is Adam Jablonski with Mid-American. I can take that if you'd like. So we looked at the load of the water plant there at the site, and then compared that to the energy that this 3 megawatt solar farm would produce. And the equivalent is 170% of usage from that plant. And when we talk about where the electricity is going to be used, this, unlike some of our wind projects that tie into a high voltage transmission system and travel longer distances, this will interconnect directly into the lower voltage distribution system. That distribution system that the citizens, businesses, et cetera, of Iowa City get their electricity from. So we'll go into that local distribution system to be used locally in Iowa City.
Any other questions for Jeff from counselors? Go right ahead.
I just want to hear from Mid-American that I know that the Arbor location, as they said, they require a lot of contact with the FAA and obtain all this kind of permission and all this kind of things. Besides this, why the airport is not a good location?
Yeah, I think we haven't done a high level due diligence review of that site, but we have, started looking into it. And I think Jeff mentioned the two key things that may be prohibitive to the site is any FAA restrictions, just not knowing those. I assume there'll be some being that close to the airport. And then two, the majority of those acres that are farmed now that are south of the airport are in a 100-year floodplain. Mid-American, does not put operating facilities in the 100-year floodplain. That's just a high-risk generation facility to us that, obviously a flood could impact the generation coming from that site.
Because in the beginning last time when we had the meeting, they said this was another option. If it's another option, that means it could work somehow. That's what I really believe.
Possibly somewhere down the road, but again, the majority is in that 100-year floodplain. And when we looked at this waterworks solar site, we specifically avoided those areas that were in that 100-year floodplain for a reason. So it'd be hard for Mid-American to take the risk on putting the generation facility in a 100-year floodplain. We just avoid those with our operating facilities. It's just a high risk location. There may be some parts of that may be feasible for a solar project, but it's going to take us months to perform due diligence on that, like we've already done for the waterworks site. Testing the soil, getting detailed floodplain mapping, running through the interconnection process to see if the distribution system would even handle the energy coming out of that plant. As a few examples.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right. Anyone else has questions for Jeff? Jeff, has our commissioners from our climate action weighed in on this at all?
I think formally you've received correspondence from a couple of those commissioners, but I do see that Matt Krieger's on the line. There may be other commissioners on this call too, and if they're willing to address that directly, it's probably best that you hear from them.
Okay, and I guess I should have restated. Has anyone reached out to you directly? I know that we have Matt on the line, and he's signed up to talk, and some other commissioners, but nothing from the commission itself, just individuals.
No, I have not received any individuals. Ashley and Brenda, you can speak up if you've heard anything from commissioners.
So two of the commissioners that submitted some written comments were Casey Hutchinson and Becky Soglin contributed. I know Matt answered a question earlier with the work session in response to a counselor's question, but outside of that, I have not heard from other active commissioners that have weighed in personally.
If there are no more questions for Jeff, then we are at our public comment section. And again, I do have two individuals that have already submitted their names, and I'm going to introduce them in a second. But if anyone else would like to address this topic, that is on the Zoom, and at the bottom of your screen, there's a black area. If you hover over that, you'll see a chat button, and you'll be able to submit your name to let us know that you would like to speak on this topic, or if you have a question for the host. If you would like to,
go ahead.
Yep.
I didn't hear the phone. That's all.
Yep. I'm going to get to the phone option as well. Thank you.
I apologize.
No worries. Yep. We're navigating this together. If you actually want to speak on this item, one of the easiest ways to do is press the reactions button at the bottom. And there's two options. There's a hand wave and there's a thumbs up. So if you click one of those, then we'll know that you want to speak on this item. For those that are on the phone, at the end, I'll be able to come and ask those of you that want to speak on this item, and you can unmute yourself by pressing *6. But to raise your thumb and let us know that you want to speak on this item, you can press *9 on the phone, and so I'll know that you want to speak on this item. I'll try to call you out by the last 4 digits of your phone number, potentially, or just have you all chime in one by one. So we're going to try this. We're going to have Jeffrey Ford and followed by Matt Krieger to speak on this item. I'm also asking that, I'm trying to see how many thumbs up we have or hand waves. So far, I find that we have 6 individuals that want to speak on this topic. I'm going to ask you to keep your comments to 3 to 5 minutes, please. And we're going to start with Jeffrey Ford and followed by Matt Krieger.
Good evening, members of the council and my neighbors. I know I speak for dozens and dozens of people I've communicated with in the park, families, dog owners, bird lovers, walkers, people of the peninsula and Mackinac villages, hundreds who live within walking and biking distance of this particular park. And I know I share the sentiments of the Johnson County Songbird Project and the Iowa City Bird Club. Waterworks Prairie Park is not simply an underused walkway. It is a refuge. It is a refuge to families and neighbors, birders and bikers. As the only park in town with significant, wide, and level concrete paths, it is a refuge for the ill and those with disabilities like myself. It is a refuge because it is wild and beautiful and is accessible. More importantly, it is a refuge to countless birds, frogs, turtles, fox, rabbits, moles, voles, etc. The list is enormous and includes the rare American kestrel, bluebirds, and meadowlarks. Proceeding with this project will destroy at least this year's nesting. Make no mistake, if you proceed, you will destroy a quality prairie and its adjacent woodland. The other projects which have been discussed where prairie and solar have been put together were sites in which prairie was introduced after the solar was in place. The notion that there will be only a net loss of 1/2 acre of prairie is disingenuous and duplicitous. The proposed pollinator garden will be a hollow ghost of what is currently thriving. The diversity will be limited and changed from species that thrive in sunlight and open, tall grass prairie to low-growing shade pollinator plants. It has to. The nature of solar is to absorb energy that would otherwise be available to the same diversity of plants that now exist in the largest extent space of prairie in the park. I fully support solar and believe we have viable alternatives. I know they have been dismissed, ignored, and put aside or dangled out there as future projects. But you are talking about making a move quickly for no good reason other than to check a climate statement box and to garner green credit for Mid-America. I know there is at least one major airport commissioner opposed to this project in Waterworks. I know he is supportive of solar being placed at the airport, where you have twice the acreage available. 500 homes worth of power is not enough. 1,000 would be better, and there are 40 acres at the airport. Solar in Waterworks Prairie Park is purely a symbolic project preferred for its visibility to I-80. Make no mistake about that preference. Do we really want to be the city that destroys dedicated parkland for the symbolic benefit of being green? Please, I ask you, do not destroy this local gem to save the world. Save the world and the park you were charged to protect. Our parks when you took office. Thank you.
Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you, Jeffrey. We're going to have Matt Krieger, and after Matt, we'll have Martha Norbick.
Thanks, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Yes, my name is Matt Krieger. I am chair of the city's Climate Action Commission, although tonight I am speaking on behalf of myself. I think we need to think holistically about this as a community and our total environmental impact. The Climate Action Plan addresses the need for both increased renewable energy and an increase in plantings and vegetation to help with adaptation to climate change and to capture carbon. The Waterworks Park project does both by replanting prairie alongside the solar array. The city is also developing a tree canopy project to plant more trees throughout the community. And thanks for your Arbor Day proclamation tonight as a testament to that as well. There's this idea about, we call it NIMBY, not in my backyard, that exists with large-scale wind farms too. And we need to get past that, I think, and come together to solve the climate crisis. It is a crisis, and it is something we need to be acting on today, now. We need projects like this one throughout the city, not just at this one site, but all of them, all of the sites, as the city manager noted, that combine a renewable energy installation with plantings and shared resources. Prairie and solar should be distributed throughout the community. Smaller design issues related to each site can be mitigated and worked through careful planning and design. They shouldn't just be scrapped for those reasons. And so I do encourage you, the City Council, to support this project. It is one step among many that we need to take to meet our climate action goals. And I think it can be done reasonably with good design to also support the park. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We will have Martha Norbick, followed by Rob Davis.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Well, I wanted to second what Matt said, and I read through the correspondence, and I understand this is a very complicated issue, and it is hard to balance the competing issues in terms of habitat and solar, and I think the city's commitment to expanding prairie, 88 acres, was that next year, Jeff? That's very impressive. And I think by expanding that habitat is a very important contribution to creating linkages in habitat. You can't just have all the prairie in Waterworks Park and expect migrating species to be able to thrive. You need to have lots of habitat, and so I think the city is supporting that. So I completely have compassion for all of the concerns, but I feel like we're in an all of the above situation. And I think this is an important project to make a statement about the city's commitment. And I know people are concerned about the location because it's visible, but I guess that's why I'm in support of it, because it's visible, because that's what people connect with. They want to see the solar. They want to see the wind. It's doing energy efficiency in buildings doesn't connect with people, but seeing the solar, people really connect with. So I appreciate all the letters from people, and I love that people love Waterworks Park so much. That's wonderful. And I hope they support the prairie in other parts of the city and don't complain about, possible snakes or mice or any other critters, and support the expansion of habitat as well as solar across our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Martha. We're going to have Rob Davis, followed by Allison Janess.
There we go. Thank you. Hi, my name is Rob Davis. I run the Center for Pollinators and Energy at a nonprofit called Fresh Energy. We're just down the road here on 35. And counselors, I am completely empathetic to your challenge in maximizing the benefits, the public benefits, and folks in Iowa City. I am completely empathetic to your challenge. The urgency of climate change, it absolutely is unceasing. It must be addressed. And we need communities to act boldly and take steps urgently. Also, the concurrent challenge of saving our native pollinators, our monarchs, our native bees, our songbirds, and they all require habitat at scale. And without action, our generation could see the Western monarch and the Eastern monarch populations disappear. But I think it's not just the ideas of climate change and saving pollinators and birds that are connected to your community. I think it's also deeply about legacy, that people connect with this park and this area and they're engaged in this conversation because of legacy. And so what I would share with you is that I've seen, working from Vermont to Oregon to Florida to Texas to Minnesota and in communities all around the country, that this is an opportunity to use private sector dollars to create habitat at scale. And because it's visible, because Iowa City's project is so visible, it will have a direct influence on the 30,000 acres of solar that will be built in Iowa in the next 10 years. Because it's visible, it will have influence and create habitat at scale for the more than 200,000 acres of habitat that will be built on solar farms throughout the Midwest, in Minnesota, in Illinois, in states to our south. We need leaders like Iowa City to say we can stack benefits. We don't have to do turf grass like at the airport where they can't create habitat, because insects attract birds, birds and airplanes really don't go together. So we need to set a precedent and send a message that we can stack these benefits. And I've walked around acres and acres and acres of these projects, and they are just a dreamscape. You just expect like a rainbow and a unicorn to come coming around the corner, because the panels are silent, the bees are buzzing, the monarchs are just flying at each other all over the place. They're gorgeous. It's really unbelievable. And that just brings me back to this idea of legacy, that when you and your grandson and your granddaughter are walking around Waterworks Park in the future, you'll be able to say, that's the energy that we chose to invest in, because that's a clean energy future. And we're stacking it and pairing it with habitat. We're creating habitat at scale. We're creating clean energy at scale. And we're making it visible because we want to share our values and broadcast those values to the rest of Iowa and set an example. I had the delight to speak at Pheasant Fest this year, and it was held here in Minneapolis. And there at Pheasant Fest, we presented an award to Xcel Energy and Southern Municipal Power Company, because the two utilities pledged to ask not just for low-cost solar, but also to pair every single one of those projects with high-quality habitat using private sector dollars. And so we gave them a Conservation Solar Leadership Award. And so each of those opportunities can create fantastic habitat. Applied Ecological Services is a great company. They have fantastic expertise. They know how to do this at scale. And I'll just share the alternative. If we don't have visible examples of high quality habitat, then something that could happen is right here this is in Iowa. This is the Raccoon Valley Electric Cooperative. And this is acres and acres and acres of Class 5 gravel under and around all of these panels. This is what's possible. They're beautiful sites, and I encourage your support of this project, and thanks for your time.
Thank you, Rob. We're going to have Allison followed by Steve Roach.
Hey, good evening, Council.
Good evening.
I'm Allison James. I'm a professor at the University of Iowa, but tonight I'm speaking as an individual citizen. So I took a look through those emails that have been sent to the Council within the past days and weeks, and it's clear from just a cursory look that the citizens have made their thoughts known. We do not wish to have one of these small areas of open space that we have left to be developed. I can assure you that the animals, the birds, the butterflies, and more who depend on that area do not care about your promises that the area will recover in, quote, a few years. You've seen those nice photographs of the habitat being built up underneath and around these solar panels, but that takes a while. And in the meantime, we have a diminished and degraded region that's not helpful to the biodiversity of this area in any way. One of the main reasons for building on this site is that the area is viewable from I-80, so it's going to lend some favorable PR optics. But I would just ask you as the Council to look closer, think about the underlying reasons for choosing this specific site. Make no mistake, there are individuals receiving kickbacks and backroom deals being made, and I'd ask that you don't be a part of that. MidAmerican says that the feasibility of these other potential sites will take months to assess, so fine. Let it take months. Have them do the legwork to make those assessments. It should not be your responsibility to meet their demands. I'm not sure why there's a rush at this moment during a pandemic to get this vote through, but I'd ask that you consider some of these comments that I've made, that you take the time and ask for the information to be gathered before you make a choice. Thank you.
Thank you, Allison. We're going to have Steve followed by Warren Bishop.
Sorry, took a second to unmute. Hi, I'm Steve Roach. I'm a resident of Iowa City. I live in the peninsula. I think the first speaker that talked about duplicitous and disingenuous, when the speaker that was basically talking about stacking, that's basically using jargon. We're going to create habitat to scale. You're not creating habitat. The habitat's there. If you take these solar panels and put them in a cornfield, then you're creating habitat. Then you're doing something good. But what you're proposing right now is to destroy habitat and then to recreate a degraded habitat. The city manager mentioned that there are 2 to 3 projects. Why don't we look at those other 2 projects that are not on a natural spaces that we already have? When settlers came into Iowa, 75 to 85% of this state was prairie. How much do we have left now? What we should be doing is thinking about creating more prairie, and that can be done at the airport. Do your stacking there. Do your stacking in a cornfield. How many cornfields do we have that are going to be growing corn that we'll have no markets for this year? It's, you're looking at a resource that is very rare. You want to destroy it while ignoring resources that we have a way overabundance of. I really hope that you all think about what you're doing. This is not about balancing 2 goods. Yes, solar energy is very good and habitat is good. We don't have to destroy one to get the other. We have plenty of land in the state that already does not have habitat on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Warren is next, followed by Jerry Waylauffer.
Hello, you see me? This is Warren Bishop. I'm a retired university professor. I'm also a member of the Airport Commission, and I'm also a local airplane pilot. First, I'd like to speak as a private citizen and not as a member of the Airport Commission. I live quite near Waterworks Park, and I actually make use of that park as a place to walk and ride my bike several times a week at least. And it's just marvelous this time of year with the bird song and the blossoming of the prairie that we have there. And I am actually very pleased to hear that this can be eventually made into a project that sounds somewhat acceptable. But I just fear that this beautiful natural environment will not be the same after row upon row of solar panels is placed there. So I also share some of the concerns about the rush to move this forward. Now, speaking as a member of the Airport Commission and as a pilot, I can tell you that many airports around the country have solar farms, and this is not something that is difficult to do. There are concerns that the FAA has, for example, with reflection of light from the panels that might blind a pilot on approach to a particular runway. But that can be mitigated by anti-reflective coatings and the proper sighting of the panels. In the Iowa City Airport case, the fields where these might be located are south of the runways. The glass panels would be facing south away from the airport. And I really don't expect that this would be a significant problem. I agree that this is probably an area where there's some flood risk, but the 2017 city study on solar installations included this part of the airport as a plausible site, and seemed to indicate that this could be done just simply by raising the panels. I think it said 8 feet off the ground. The Airport Commission is actually very interested in hosting this project. Currently, the 40 acres or so that we have available for that is planted in row crops and leased to a farmer. The airport, as most commissioners know, is not receiving much in the way of city funds, except in grant matching funds. And so we're very dependent on things like farmers' lease payments to make our ends meet. So this would have to be something, if we were able to do it, that would help us balance our budget. And I think it could do that. So anyhow, the Airport Commission at our last meeting voted to raise this issue with Mid-American, and we've done that. And we would love to work with the City Council on moving this forward, regardless of what your decision is with Waterworks Park. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Warren. We're going to have Jerry followed by Virginia Bailey. But before Jerry comes, I just wanted to remind those that want to comment on this item to raise your hand, and you can do that at the bottom of the screen where it says reactions. There's a little thumbs up or wave that you can give. For those that are on the phone and you want to address this topic, you can press *9, and that'll notify me that you want to also comment on this item. And remember, we're asking everybody to keep their comments 3 to 5 minutes. And now we will have Jerry, followed by Virginia Bailey.
Okay, right. My name is Jerry Wetlaufer. I'm Professor of Law Emeritus at the University of Iowa. And I speak to express my strong opposition to the proposed agreement by which the city would turn 14 acres for much loved and much used Waterworks Prairie Park to Mid-American for the construction of a large industrial power plant comprised at its core of 10,000 solar panels. I will leave to others the task of explaining the effect or focusing on the effects on the park and its ecology and on its many users. But in a nutshell, we're talking about a long-term lease of 19 acres that would contain an industrial-scale installation of 10,000 solar panels, casting everything beneath them in deep and permanent shade. We're talking about a 7-foot fence topped by barbed wire built to within 7 feet of approximately 2,000 feet of the park's walkways. Even outside the 19 acres, we're talking about the elimination of those trees that now buffer the park from the interstate, as well as the elimination of an unspecified number of trees on the eastern boundary. All of this will destroy much of the park and diminish its present value to all of those who use it. The points that I want to make primarily are may sound a little bit counterintuitive, but hear me out. The first of them is that approval of this project will contribute nothing to our shared commitment to the use of renewable energy, and the preservation of our prairie parkland will in no way set back the cause of renewable energy. MidAmerican tells us that if the city doesn't give them the use of this park, they will simply find some other site for the plant. Thus, I hope that's not my time up. Thus, MidAmerican itself has assured us. Can we stop that?
I'm not sure what that noise is. Jerry, you're silent.
I am. Thank you, Bruce. Yep. Approval of the project will contribute nothing to our shared commitment to the use of renewable energy, and the preservation of our prairie parkland will in no way set back the development of solar energy. MidAmerican tells us that if the city doesn't give them the use of this parkland, they simply will find another site for the park. Thus, MidAmerican itself has assured us that a decision to preserve the prairie parkland will have no adverse effect on the development of renewable energy or on the reduction of carbon emissions. Second, I submit that the project will do nothing to advance our shared commitment to a 45% reduction in Iowa City's carbon emissions, because the construction of the plant inside our prairie park will not measurably increase the amount of renewable energy that will be consumed in Iowa City. I've got 2 points here. My first one, and MidAmerican may have spoken to it, but a little obliquely. It's long been on my understanding that power produced by power plants goes onto the grid, and it cannot be directed at particular locales. Similarly, Iowa City's electricity needs are met by connecting the city to that regional power grid, and thus taking whatever power is there. Apart from that, apart from the fact that the power may not be dedicated somehow to the needs of Iowa City, the second problem is that even if all the solar power were not dedicated to the regional grid, even if it could somehow be delivered to Iowa City, which I think it cannot, the most that could be said is that we would be substituting the use of renewable solar power for the power that MidAmerican would otherwise deliver to us. But that would not be a case of replacing dirty power with clean power. Through its development of wind power, 54% of the power MidAmerican presently delivers, or 2 years ago delivered to its customers, was from renewable sources. And MidAmerican tells us that by the end of the year, they will have completed the present wind project they're involved in, and they will become the first investor-owned electric utility to generate renewable energy equal to 100% of its customers' usage on an annual basis.
Jerry,
This is, sir.
Your 5 minutes is up.
If I can may I have just a moment to complete and bring near the end.
If you can just take a quick moment.
Sure.
I need to be.
I understand that. I appreciate that. Thus, in the very best case, we would be substituting solar energy for the renewable energy that Mid-American is already providing to us. And in the end, what we're looking at is a lease agreement, not a partnership of any normal kind, is a lease agreement by which we would privatize the use of our parkland in exchange for lease payments from Mid-American. And I think that makes no sense. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Bruce.
Thank you, Jerry. We're going to have Regina Bailey next. And before we have the other two that are signed up, we'll go to the phones to see if there's anyone there that wants to give comment. So, Regina Bailey.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to point out to the council and to staff that implementation of current community goals should not be incompatible with other community values. This isn't a matter of NIMBYism. This is about our shared understanding of what parks mean in our community. In Iowa City, designation of land for use as a public park creates a community understanding and expectation of that land in perpetuity. That's how we understand parkland. As a community, we understand that our parks and open spaces, when we designate them by their very nature, by their definition as a park, are underdeveloped and undeveloped land and are to remain that way in perpetuity. Although we might build park structures or trails or restrooms or playground facilities that enhance the park's usability for residents, we share an understanding that parks are not developable land. It's not land for use in other projects, no matter how worthy, no matter how those other projects achieve our community goals. The only projects that we expect to see in public parks are projects that enhance the use of that land as a park. The use of that land, the projects are in service to the use of that land as a park. And I believe that that's why you're seeing so many people supportive of the use of solar energy, supportive of the council's goals around sustainability, but frustrated, upset, concerned, aghast about using this space that we understand is not to be developed for anything else, using this designated parkland for development. It's not a compatible use with our community, what it is to be a park. It's not compatible. This project, with its fencing, its security barbed wire, its obscuration of the open prairie by solar panels, is not a development in service of the park. It's in service to perhaps very worthy goals, but it's not in service to the park, and therefore it's an inappropriate use of parkland as we as a community understand this definition of a public park. Moving forward with this project at this location, not the project. The project isn't flawed. It's the location and the selection of the location that was flawed. Moving forward with this project and this location would be a violation of our shared community understanding, our shared community values of parkland. And it makes me wonder if we need to have an additional conversation as we move forward with these kinds of projects, if we have to have an additional conversation about our shared community understanding of what it means to designate land as a park, because that, I think, is a strongly held community value. And I ask you to bring that into consideration as you look at this project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Regina Bailey. I just wanted to point out again, for those that are on the phone, press star 9 if you would like to chime in on this topic. If you press star 9, you'll be able to raise your hand. We are having people raise their hand from the phone, so that is great. So if you're on the phone again, press star 9. We have Colleen Opal, followed by Maggie Elliott, that will speak next. And so Colleen Opal, if you're on the...
Yes, I am here.
Great.
Ooh, I hear myself echo. And there's a storm coming, so I don't know if you all got the alerts, but I can hear it. So I apologize if my dogs bark. They think thunder is a dog growling at them. So I just wanted to say I'm glad to hear so many voices advocating for our parks and advocating for solar. So it's hard when these two things conflict, but I don't think it has to be an either or. I think it's worth it to take the time to invest in our goals, like Regina said, our goals that are compatible with each other. And I heard a Mid-American representative say that it takes time and it would take time to find another location. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay that we take the time to find a suitable location, because Prairie would take so long to develop. And I'm not an expert on Prairie. And so I think it's worthwhile to get a Prairie expert in the conversation to do an environmental impact statement to see what is the actual impact here. And the city, I really feel, should be behind creating, not tearing down. And so those are just the points I want to say. I'm also just concerned about the corporate collaboration per se. I feel like it's kind of rushed, and it makes me concerned with, what the rationale is for giving away land. So, okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to have Maggie Elliott, followed by Lori Crawford. We'll come back to Maggie.
Hello.
Hello, there you are.
It took me a while. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. I want to commend the City Council for your strong efforts to address climate change, and I also think the private-public partnership is a great idea. However, I am with the 50-plus citizens, Iowasidians, who have written in protest of placing the proposed solar farm in Waterworks Park. One issue that I haven't heard mentioned tonight is the proposals touting of the creation of a prairie solar park. And yes, they are popping up everywhere, and a great idea to combine energy production with the improvement of soil through prairie plantings. That's all great. However, in Waterworks Park, the soil is already in prairie, so the soil improvement is happening. And the addition of the solar park brings no additional benefit to the park. In fact, I don't see any win for the park. So that's my end of my comment. I do have a question, or want to lay a question out there on the table. Is in the past, I was a member of the Park and Recreation Commission, and as I read this, it occurred to me that this would be something that would come before the Park Commission. And I wondered if it had, and if it had, what was their recommendation to the council on placing a solar system within the park? I appreciate so many community members speaking up for this proposal, and thank you for your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Maggie. Lori Crawford is our last person that has signed up. So Lori Crawford.
Lori, you're muted.
Okay, I'll start over. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm one of the people opposed to placing the solar panels at Waterworks Park.
I'm not opposed to solar panels at all. Waterworks Park it concerns me because it was established to restore a landscape to a prairie wetland. The purpose of the park was to provide a protected haven for organisms, including turkeys, deer, coyotes, fox, mink, beavers, and a multitude of turtles and fish. It's also a popular birding spot. There are many pollinators that live at the park as well. If we take this habitat, it means potential loss of bird populations. Grassland bird populations have already declined 53% since 1980. I think that taking some of this land will contribute to that. Solar panels are known to cause bird deaths. They burn birds, or the birds die when they try to land on the panels. They view them as bodies of water. This will also happen with pollinators, insects. We need pollinators for our survival. Pollinators are necessary for 3/4 of our food crops. This loss of this area also will impact human health, the degradation of the environment through air pollution, noise, chemicals, poor quality water, and loss of natural areas, with the emphasis on loss of natural areas, may be contributing to substantial increases in rates of obesity, diabetes, diseases of cardiovascular, and cancer. I really wish that the city would look at options, different places to place the solar panels. This park is very important to people, particularly those of us who live close to it. I know I live in the peninsula area. I walk under the interstate and walk through the park. There are already wood duck nests there that I assume would be disturbed by the location that you are planning for the solar panels. And I just ask that you slow down, based on the fact that we have this pandemic going on and people can't voice their concerns or don't even know that this is happening. And let's put these in the right place. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. On the phone, we have someone with their hand raised. So we're going to go to the phone, and please state your first and last name. And if you can also spell it for us.
This is Feather Lacy, Feather, Lacy, Lacy. Glad to hear you because I pushed *9 4 times. I would like to say that, first of all, I am an advocate of solar panels, but not at the Waterworks Park. Please do not replace the prairie in the Waterworks Park with solar panels. Just because the solar panels will be visible from I-80 and used as an advertisement for Mid-American Energy does not justify destroying the prairie and putting up a very tall fence topped with barbed wire only 10 feet from the trail. This is hideous. Apparently, the city staff, without doing much research, already discarded the idea of putting the solar panels at the airport and looked at no other locations, including other parcels of land, rooftops, parking lots or parking ramps, etc. Mid-America has indicated that the 19 acres of solar panels will produce 3 megawatts of electricity. A satellite image survey of the available city rooftop space, which would be suitable for solar panels, show that there is enough space, qualified space, for at least 10 megawatts of solar panels. The university has about that much space also. Commercial buildings would add another 10 megawatts of power. Mid-America says that these small spaces, compared to the 19 acres, are inconvenient to work with, but individuals are putting solar panels on their own homes now. I visited the prairie in the Waterworks Park this last Monday. The people that walked by all agreed that solar panels should not be placed at this location. I suggested if the City Council actually wants community input, you postpone the decision until next spring after the staff has considered other options as previously mentioned, and the city and the community can actually participate in the public comment meeting. In conclusion, I would like to quote Dale Helling, who is the interim city manager, the interim city manager, from a memorandum dated September 12, 2007. This memo is in reference to the 2007 proposed ordinances granting franchises to Mid-American for electric and gas utility services. And I quote him: "The ordinance clarifies that the right of the company to locate infrastructure in the public right-of-way does not extend to other public places such as parks. Please keep it that way. Thank you. I'm finished.
Thank you. I'm happy you were able to join us.
Me too. Thank you.
Is there anyone else on the line, on the phone, that would like to talk about this? Rosa, maybe? I am hearing no one else on the phone line from the public that would like to address this topic. All right, counselors, are we ready to move forward with closing the public hearing? And I think I'm going to look at all the counselors and make sure we're ready to close the public hearing. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I get a motion to approve resolution?
So moved.
John.
Moved by Thomas.
Second by Mims.
Seconded by Mims. Council discussion.
All right, well, I'll start the conversation. I want to thank staff for the effort that they've put into this, and it's certainly been helpful learning that while this project has been under consideration, that there are efforts looking at other sites as well. And I'd also like to thank all the comments we've been hearing from the community that certainly gives us a very clear sense of how treasured the Waterworks Prairie Park is to the residents here. And so in trying to process all of this, which is a challenge to say the least, I think what I would like to say is that my sense of how this would, if we were to proceed with this project, I do not view a solar prairie overlay, so to speak, to be equivalent to what's there now. What's there now is truly an extraordinary resource and valued landscape to the residents of Iowa City. I would need much further documentation and discussion to come to a different conclusion with respect to that. But given the information that we've been presented, I don't find the notion of a solar prairie overlay to be equivalent to what's there now. So my inclination would be to then consider what other sites we could consider to meet our goals with utility scale solar, which I think is an important piece of our strategy. And so with that in mind, over the last few days, I have been looking at what other cities and counties are looking at with respect to their strategies in achieving utility scale solar. And what I found is that in the time that I've been looking, is that many of the sites that we've been exploring are consistent with what other cities and counties are pursuing. And that being, for example, airports, landfills, in particular, are two sites which are looked at very carefully in terms of achieving solar at a utility scale. Another approach, which I have not heard mentioned, but kind of speaks in a way to what Rob Davis was describing, is cities and counties working at leasing lands in the fringe areas of their cities and installing solar, often using this perennial concept as the ground plane. And for example, and I have a couple of them for you, the Madison Metropolitan School District is partnering with the City of Madison in creating a 7 megawatt solar farm to be developed by Madison Gas and Electric. This would be located, as I said, on the outside of Madison, and it would serve both the school district and the city of Madison. So that's a project that would be roughly anywhere between 35 and 49 acres and would power over 1,800 homes. So it's considerably larger than what we're looking at for Waterworks Park. But I think it suggests the potential for leasing lands at the fringe areas, using an analysis which would factor in all the qualities that we would prefer with respect to installing utility scale facilities in those locations, where we could in fact increase our land cover and pollinators, preserve the use of the prairie at Waterworks Park, and leave it alone, at least for now. I mean, I really would prefer any serious consideration of Waterworks Park to be something that we do not put at the front end of our project, but rather do our full inventory of the opportunities we have both within the city and in the fringe areas before we start looking at the solar for that particular park. So with that being the case, I at this point would like to either indefinitely defer this item or to say no to what I'm seeing as proposed, because what I'm seeing in the proposal, I just feel is not going to be, as Virginia would say, compatible with the current character of the park.
I would like to start by thanking the staff and all the residents who come out this evening to talk about this, or for the public benefit. We receive a lot of emails, and those people who took the time to write and opposing this project. As Colleen said, they are not opposing the solar, but they are not. They both of them are okay, good things to do. But now, why is either or? We need both of them. So, as also Regina said, this land has been designated for certain things and never had the intention of developing it. That's why I think that we need all the residents who brought the point. They brought a very good point, and I agree with John Thomas. We need more time to evaluate this. And to me, it seemed like some residents reached out to some airport commission, and one of them spoke to us this evening. And I guess they are supportive of the idea for this to be at the airport, even though I understand that Jeff said this is also the flood the flood area, but it's still, they said that the 2016 study, they said that they can do it, but they can do it with a certain measurement of, how they implement it. Given the fact that many airports elsewhere have already established this, and also our own airport people like to do this, and also given the fact that, the resident, this land has been, designated for certain use, I just think that, we need to establish this solar project somewhere else, either at the airport or somewhere else, and also, I think providing if we have this project at the airport or somewhere else, this will provide the need and the desire for solar and will protect the quality prairie habitat in the Waterworks Park. As Jim Walter said, and I will quote him, he said that Mid-America is a well-funded corporation. I don't think they need the taxpayer assistance, and I agree 100% with that. If they don't like the option that we have, whether the airport or some suggestion that John Thomas provided or the another area, they can buy another land that adjacent to Iowa City and do this project. Since I'm a public servant, I will go ahead and serve the best interest of our taxpayer and voted no for this project. Thank you.
This is Pauline. When I first heard of this solar project, to be honest, I was excited about it because after all, it seemed to go along with our climate action plans. But I have to admit, I knew very little about that waterworks prairie area. I'd never been out there. Therefore, as Jeff noted, I requested info on the history of the development of that prairie park. And thank you, Jeff, for including that info in the late handouts. And I hope my fellow counselors took the time to read all of that material. It was very helpful to learn about the development of this park. I was amazed at the amount of thought and planning that went into the original project, right down to the species of plants, how many seeds would be needed, and even included a REAP grant, the Resource Enhancement and Protection Fund from the DNR, to the tune of $80,350 and city input of $30,000. So over $100,000 went into this project. That's a lot. And goals of the project, as alluded to by Lori Crawford earlier, she touched on natural area restoration, floodplain management, and public recreation uses, with intent to establish 120 acres of native prairie, creating an attractive natural area in an urban setting. And I have to say, in my 5 years on the council, and I think my other councilors can say this too, I don't remember getting so much correspondence regarding any issue. I actually lost count of how many we received, and we received even many, many more even yet today. And they all had the same message, but yet they were different. They were very personal. It wasn't like a template that we get sometimes where they just fill in the blanks. It was very personal messages on their love of this prairie area. And we just can't, as Maza here alluded to, we can't and shouldn't ignore the concerns of our community members. We've heard from so many of them on this. And with all due respect to you, Jeff, and all of your staff members who spent a lot of time on this, well, I applaud a partnership with Mid-American Energy in an attempt to reach our climate action goals. I just believe we should seriously examine other options as locations for this, because this location just seems contrary to the original effort of establishing this as a true prairie park.
This is Susan. I'll go next, I guess. I have to say this is an issue that I've really struggled with over the last few weeks since we first started with it, because two very important, but in my mind, competing goals of the city. And that is certainly developing and maintaining excellent parkland of all sorts for our residents, as well as the designation of our climate action crisis and then our climate action plan. The more I've looked at this and tried to go through the various details of things, I guess my first comment or my next comment could be, John, you phrased things, you hit it on the head with a lot of the comments you made. I agree with the fact that while the vegetation would be, new vegetation would be put in place that would not be the same vegetation, nor would I consider it, I think, as you said, equivalent to the quality of the prairie that's there now. It would be pollinator type species, but not necessarily the same prairie aspect that we have there now. I want to thank staff, for all the work that they have put into it. I think part of what has gotten us here is some unfortunate timing, I think, in my perspective. We passed our climate action crisis. We've been getting the climate action committee up to speed. And when I really look at this and think about it, one individual asked, had this gone through Parks and Rec Commission, because it's talking about a major change to one of our parks? And also the question of, could it or should it have gone through, if the timing were different, really gone through the Climate Action Commission as well. And I think if we'd had the opportunity to have it go through both of those, it would have given the public a lot more notice of what we were potentially looking at doing, and given them a lot more opportunity to give input early on in the process, which I think would have made it easier for everybody as we get towards the end of this. I walked out. I've been out to the park a lot over the years, and I walked out there again today because I just felt a real need to go back and really stand there and look at and imagine what that would be with 18 plus acres of those 10,000 solar panels out there, and the fence and barbed wire on the top of the fence and within 10 feet of the trail. And I cannot envision that. I can't see that as a good use or an appropriate use of that park. And I want to thank Virginia. I think she did a great job of kind of capturing, I think, some of the things that have been going through my mind and that I've kind of struggled with over the last few days. Is it when we do designate a park, our community members expect that to be a park in perpetuity for use as a park. And so then the real question becomes, what do we put in that park that has that does not make it a better park, so to speak, for the utilization? And people could have different opinions of whether this would be a compatible use. I would say it's not a compatible use. I think when people go out there, they go out there to really enjoy nature. And I don't think this kind of a structure in that area would do that. I look forward to the opportunity through the Climate Action Commission and staff and council to explore other options for industrial size solar complexes within our community. I think we need to do that. I think this has unfortunately been maybe a little bit rushed, and we need to really take some time to do some I think Janice said today when I talked to her, strategic planning in terms of how what do we need and where are the best places to put it. So I will not be supporting this project.
I think when we look at all of the factors that we have to balance in a project like this, it's become very clear to me that it's much more nuanced than it looks at first. And what I am seeing and what I'm trying to balance in listening to all the different comments is how we may have failed in the process in this particular project. As Pauline mentioned, we've received a tremendous amount of public input and are hearing from new individuals yet this evening. And so, I feel in my short time on the council that it's wonderful to have this level of public engagement, but those who are speaking and saying we need to have considered it longer or have had more notice, we've failed if we haven't communicated that effectively. Earlier in the year, we approved the ordinance to allow for this type of utility. And at that time, it was very much in the open. I perceived that we were talking about locating this at Waterworks Park. And so I was a little bit surprised to begin to hear the public being so disconcerted in terms of the value of the park land and what that means in relation to our climate action goals. So, I think it's important as we move forward that we just be very open in continuing to talk about that prioritization, and that in this process, it sounds to me that a variety of individuals, and I'm including myself, are maybe kind of taking for granted what the priorities might be. I came onto the council getting a tremendous amount of input on the importance of minimizing our impact on the climate and what that means in terms of our climate action plan. We've heard from members of the Climate Action Commission that they're favorable to this project in this location with, due to the layering and the coexistence of plants that aren't as good as the prairie that is established there, but would provide pollinator habitat. So I think it's just important to know that it's nuanced, and we haven't done a good job of establishing for ourselves or for the public how we would prioritize that. Because before 2 weeks ago, I absolutely thought that we would have said it's worth giving up parkland for 3 megawatts of renewable energy, and that's clearly not the will of the public in Iowa City. So tonight I won't be supporting this project, but I think it's very important that we know that that's the choice that we're making and that we're being honest about that.
I thought about this also long and hard, and I think that in part some of what has taken place is because there is such urgency to confront our climate emergency. And over in the months that seem so long ago now, prior to the pandemic, there was a real push to put together the climate action plan that city staff put together. And it seems to me that one of the things that happened is they saw this, Mid-American saw it, they said, this is a great opportunity and let's seize on it. I also appreciate the enormous input from the public. The only thing that I would add to that is I honestly believe that everyone who was working very hard on this on staff did so only with the best of intentions, as well as everybody who has commented to us from the public in emails and in person. I guess what we're looking at tonight are we need to be clear that it's this project up or down at this point, and then we move forward with something else. And I'm also very mindful of the extremely unusual circumstances in which we find ourselves right now. We just have to look at the screen to see how unusual a time we're living in right now. And so I think that this is not because of the push forward on actions to mitigate climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This hasn't been through Parks and Rec, and it hasn't been through necessarily to the extent that it ought through the Climate Action Commission. And I would like to see us step back and go back to the drawing board and have the Climate Action Commission basically give us some notion of what should we be doing, what scale should we be doing in terms of utility scale solar, what amount should we be doing in terms of distributed power that's local to houses and others, what mix do we want and where do we want it. It may not end up being a project with Mid-American, but I think that we will end up down the road with projects that the community at large can support as we move forward to this incredibly important goal of reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and meeting the goals of our climate action plan. So I will also not be supporting this evening.
Well, I think most of the counselors have already shared some of my comments. I want to just mention a few things just so that I can allow the public to hear from me directly. With this project, when you think about it and what council has been working on, being very courageous in creating the climate action plan, this kind of met that goal. And so we were, I was looking forward to this as being a way for us to really show and demonstrate to the public visibly how we are serious about our commitment to climate action, and this is our way to get there. Of course, I didn't anticipate all the community comments, and I didn't know the history of how this park came to be. And so and thank you, Councilor Taylor, for requesting that, because that history really did bring about a different light about all the work that went into the creation of this back in 2003, 2004. So that gave me a greater perspective of what the restoration looked like and what this really meant to a lot of people within our community. I think those expectations is something that we're hearing from. Because, you know, when you designate a park, you're thinking it's in perpetuity. And then if you're going to do something to it, then we need to ensure that we have that process in place where we get public comment, you know, about what's going to happen and public buy-in. I believe that, you know, the 17 or 18 acres of solar that would have been provided there certainly would meet a lot of goals, but I think is the location right now where is a challenge that most of the counselors have talked about. And so for me, one thing that I hope in the future that we do before we look at any more projects is to begin with the end in mind. And I say that often, begin with the end in mind, where we really do look at what is our goal throughout any of our solar plans, where we, you know, put that out, as well as go to the parks and recs, go to our climate action commissioners and have conversations with them and the public to ensure that we're doing this collaboration with everyone, having input. And so I am not going to support this tonight, but I do thank, of course, our staff that have worked really hard at putting this together, and countless hours, of course, that they've done, as well as Mid-American Energy. And our counselors, again, thank you all for digging into this. And for the public, I have to say, I was trying to figure out, we had so many people comment on this from the public, and I couldn't quite figure out how they all became knowledgeable of it, which we don't want to hide anything from the public. And I don't think the intent was to, by any means, try to pull a fast one during COVID-19 to push this through. Any of that conversation, I think, can be squashed, because that's not what our council does, nor our staff. I really believe that they are committed to our public. And so we do have to step back and listen to the public. And we even have advocators that want this project to go through, and I recognize and I acknowledge them as well. I think right now for myself, I will vote no on this item. I don't know if Jeff had any final things that you wanted to mention about this item.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Mayor. I do want to thank the public and the council for your deliberation, and certainly respect your position. And I hope you know staff's going to continue to work diligently to get us to both our natural area and our climate action goals. But before you vote and move on, and some people jump off the line here, I really feel like I need to say thank you to the folks at Mid-American. Matt Ott and Adam Jablonski are on the call here, and we've been working with them for a year now. They've been incredibly responsive to our needs here at the city on this project and on many others. I think as you all know, Mid-American Energy is probably the most important partner that we have in order for us to reach our climate action goals. And they've been very supportive of our climate action plan and have indicated every step along the way that they want to be a partner with us. And that's not just this project, that's throughout the entire plan. So I want to thank them because they've invested an incredible amount of time and energy and money into this project. And I know we'll continue to reach out and work with them going forward. But I wanted to publicly acknowledge them before we moved on to the next item. Thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Any other comments from councilors? Hearing none. Roll call, please.
Ma'am?
Yes.
Salee?
No. Oh, I meant to vote no.
It's okay. You can change your vote until the vote is called.
I'm voting no. Sorry about that.
Salee?
No.
Taylor?
No.
Teague?
No.
Thomas,
No.
Weiner,
No.
Burgess.
No.
Motion fails 0-7. Did I get a motion to accept correspondence?
So move.
Moved by Taylor, seconded by
Second.
Salee. Roll call, please.
Salee,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 11, sale of 1234 Sandusky Drive. Resolution authorizing conveyance of a single-family home located at 1234 Sandusky Drive. I'm going to open the public hearing, and we're going to have staff presentation on this.
Hello, this is Erica Kubley with Neighborhood Services. So 1234 Sandusky Drive is the first home to be sold through the South District Homeownership Program. The city acquired the duplex for $124,000 or $62,000 per unit in August of 2019, and then converted the duplex to a 2-unit condominium to sell to eligible home buyers. The property is vacant at the time of purchase due to a kitchen fire in 1234, which caused substantial damage. The unit was essentially down to the studs when the city acquired it, so the main level has been completely restored. Other improvements include an updated kitchen bathroom, upgraded electrical, new siding and garage door, and a fenced yard. And I believe we have a before and after picture if Kelly is able to pull it up. And so here we have the before, the brown home on the left is the before, and then the greenish home is on the right. You can see some of the improvements. Staff also incorporated several sustainability improvements, including solar panels, added insulation, Energy Star rated appliances, tree plantings, new windows and doors, and long life cycle flooring. The home appraised at $144,000 for the unit. The sales price was set at $115,000, which is the acquisition cost plus renovation costs, as well as any carrying costs that the city incurred. Of the $115,000, $35,000 was funded by local funds and will be provided as a conditional mortgage on the property that will be forgiven over 10 years, as long as the buyer continues to live there. The buyer is also expected to receive $25,000 in down payment assistance through the federal home program funds. The remainder will be financed by a local lender, and monthly housing payments are expected to be around $600, which is well below the home fair market rent, which is currently $902 for a 2-bedroom unit. The buyer is a longtime resident of Taylor Drive. They've lived there for over 15 years, and they are also a first-time home buyer. That's all I got.
Thank you, Erica. Any questions for Erica? Hearing none. At this time, we're going to ask for public discussion. I didn't see anyone that wanted to speak on this item. So if you're on Zoom or if you are on the phone line, please feel free to chime in at this time and keeping your comments to no more than 3 to 5 minutes.
Hi, Mayor Teague. This is Sarah Barron. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome, Sarah.
Hello, I am sorry that I'm not joining you by video tonight. The Barron family has been sheltering in place since March 13th, and no one wants to deal with my quarantine hair, I promise. So you get my picture of houses instead. I just want to say thank you to everyone who has invested in this project. You all just went through a very difficult discussion of another unrelated to housing issue where you had a good idea and feedback from the community and the investment of that feedback and you all listening to that feedback has the potential to make the project even stronger. And in this case, if you'll remember, there was a plan to acquire some housing, to convert it to owner-occupied housing, and public feedback really helped to focus this project in a way that makes it ultimately so much more powerful. I can't help but notice that you all had the proclamation at the beginning of the meeting where you talked about Fair Housing Month and the importance of affirmatively furthering access to housing. The fact that you are providing an opportunity to someone who has lived on Taylor Drive for 15 years as a renter to become a first-time home buyer in their own neighborhood is exactly a wonderful example of affirmatively furthering fair housing. So thank you for your dedication to this project, the investment that you've made, the example that you've set for future opportunities like this. And we really look forward to seeing more like this from the city. Thanks so much to everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Is there anyone else that would like to address this topic? Hearing none, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Or second.
Taylor.
Moved by Taylor, seconded by Weiner. Council discussion.
This is Pauline. If y'all will remember when this program was first proposed to move from the university program to this type of program with the duplexes, it met with a lot of concerns. But I think now there couldn't be a better endorsement than hearing from Sarah Behrens and how positive this program has turned out to be as far as providing fair housing for folks and to be able to purchase their own home. I mean, there's no better feeling than that, to be able to own your own home. And I think there were doubts that there would be anyone interested in it, but we can see that that there is interest, and it's great. And this truly is more affordable than even the university programs ever were. And I always love seeing the before and after pictures. Kudos to the staff that worked on that. It's great. I'm very much in favor of this.
Yeah, this is in my neighborhood, and really, really meaningful to know how staff really worked hard to come up with helping people in the neighborhood understand this opportunity was available and to work with individuals who are eligible and to get someone in there who, like Sarah said, has been a resident for a long time who will be owning this home is just phenomenal. So really excellent work on a creative project.
I also want to echo everyone, like Pauline and Sarah Baron and also Burgers, about what they said about it. Is really, really great, opportunity. And we as a city are doing great on providing, affordable owner occupying housing, which is really great. I hope to see more of this kind of project. The only thing that I really want to talk about is I would really love to see people of color who live there to be part of this, because we don't want to suddenly, making the area, because I know there's a lot of people of color there. They applied for this, but they could not get it for certain reason. And if the city can help them out, there is many, many ways we can help those people who are interested and in like getting these houses, because they already paying the rent, which means they are paying the mortgage and the taxes for the owner, of course. So they are eligible income-wise, but unfortunately, maybe they have another barrier, like maybe bad credit, maybe another things. I hope the city will provide more assistance for those people who are interested and applying for this kind of project, so we have diversity of people who, buy this kind of houses that provided by the city. Looking forward to see more people of color buying these houses and with the help of Iowa cities. Thank you.
I would just like to add that I think this is a beautiful project, first of all, with lots of, as has been noted, lots of participation in getting here. I would just also like to add that I think this is, for me anyway, a good example of a project where you end up with something that serves as a model. So you have an example within the neighborhood of kind of a transformational change to existing housing stock, which people can see, they can walk through the house and be inspired by it. And I would hope that would have its own kind of momentum that would build behind seeing that within their neighborhoods and expanding the program through their own initiative if that's possible. But I think it's really helpful to have that renovative aspect and spirit that's taking hold in the neighborhood that I hope will spur more renovations moving forward.
I agree with John. I've had a chance to visit one of the units, and it's really remarkable what was done with a relatively small amount of money to really make it sparkle. So I hope the new owners enjoy it, and I hope we have many more in the future.
So this is what
These are great programs, and we certainly have, things have changed over the years. We started with the university program and really ended up running out of houses that fit that particular model. And as we've moved to different parts of the community, we've adapted the program. And I think that makes great sense in giving the opportunity to people who live within that neighborhood to move into that owner category is great. And as John said, you get one out there, it's a model. People see that these are possibilities. And hopefully, we've got various programs for people to go through the educational process to help them learn how to be a homeowner and what it takes from both the financial to taking care of a house, et cetera, so that they can work towards that as an option for themselves if they're interested. So it's a great program, and thanks to staff.
So this is one of the first items that was being promoted when I came on council in 2018. And as Councilor Taylor talked about, we didn't know exactly what it all meant. And what we knew is that we wanted to do something within the area over on Broadway Taylor Street and converting some renters to homeowners. And so this is a result of that initiation. So happy that we are able to get to this point today, and looking forward to many more opportunities. I know that we haven't talked in great length as council on what's next. We're very grateful for the 4 units that we currently kind of have underway. And so very happy for this evening. And I won't repeat what everybody said, but kudos to the staff for following through on what council vision was for this. And it really does show the values of this council and even our city staff, as well as our community in supporting work that we do in the housing world to create housing, affordable housing for people within our community. So with that being said, if there's nothing else, we will do a roll call.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Fergus?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 12, Iowa Avenue resolution. For the,
We're not hearing you, Bruce.
you don't hear me?
Now we do. Now we do.
I am so sorry. I'll start over. Item number 12, Iowa Avenue Bridge Repair. Resolution approving project manual and estimate of costs for the construction of the Iowa Avenue Bridge Repair Project, establishing amount of bid security to accompany each bid, directing city clerk to post notice to bidders, and fixing time and place for receipts of bid. I'm going to open the public hearing. And we have staff that will present on this.
Mr. Mayor, Council, Ron Knuck, Public Works Director. The project before you tonight is to repair 4 expansion joints that are in the bridge deck of the Iowa Avenue Bridge over the Iowa River. There will also be some some concrete repair work that'll have to be done as they do the expansion joint repair. The project is estimated at $100,000.
Any questions from councilors?
No.
Hearing none, this is a time for the public to have the opportunity to weigh in on this item. I don't have any one from the public signed up to respond. If you would like to respond either through Zoom, whether you're on a computer or a phone, now is your opportunity. Hearing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing. Can I get a motion to approve the resolution?
Moved by Mims.
Second, Taylor.
Council discussion? Roll call, please.
Teague,
Yes?
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Fergus,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Salee,
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 13, wastewater code modification. Ordinance amending Title 16 entitled Public Works, Chapter 3, City Utilities, Article D, Wastewater Treatment Works Users, Section 6, Building Sewers and Connections, in Article E, Wastewater Treatment Works, Indirect Discharge, Section 4, Pre-Treatment Standards, subsection B2, to establish update influent limitations for zinc. This is the second consideration.
I move that the rule requiring that ordinances must be considered and voted on for passage at 2 council meetings prior to the meeting at which it is to be finally passed be suspended, that the second consideration and vote be waived, and that the ordinance be voted on for final passage at this time.
Taylor,
Moved by Taylor, seconded by Salee.
No, Mim.
Moved by Mims.
Moved by Mim, seconded by Salee. Public discussion. Is there anyone on the phone or anyone on Zoom that would like to address this topic?
Mr. Mayor, Council, Ron Konecki, Public Works Director, just want to remind you that this ordinance will put into the code, will codify our policy in regards to sanitary sewer connection abandonment, and then also will establish our local limits for our zinc influent at our plant.
Thank you. Council discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Thomas,
Yes.
Weiner,
Yes.
Fergus,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Salee,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague.
Yes. Motion passes 7-0.
Move final adoption. I'm sorry, move final adoption at this time.
Second.
Thomas.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Thomas. Public discussion. Anyone from the public like to address this topic? Hearing none, council discussion. Roll call, please.
Weiner,
Yes.
Fergus,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Salee,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 14, credit program for parking pass holders. Resolution authorizing the city manager to develop and implement a credit program for City of Iowa City parking pass holders. Could I get a motion to approve resolution?
Just
Moved by Salee, seconded by Mims. Council discussion.
Mayor, this is an item that I'd like to request an indefinite deferral on. Essentially, what we were asking for is the ability to implement a rebate or a credit program for our parking pass holders, recognizing that the governor's orders have closed or significantly limited business operations, and also recognizing that we've been strong with our stay-at-home message. We've got a number of pass holders that have requested those refunds or rebates or credits, and this item was to get your approval to move forward on that. Between the time we issued the packet and today, we had an opportunity to dig in a little bit deeper to our coverage requirements, specifically for our Harrison Street lease. For those council members that aren't familiar, we do lease the Harrison deck, and then we will become the eventual owners of that after our lease period. That lease agreement does require certain net revenue coverage ratios, and our ability to issue credits maybe limited in a way that we didn't anticipate when we wrote this memo. So we just would like to request some additional time to talk with our bond counsel, to talk with the lender in that for that project, to see if indeed something is possible. And if it's not possible, then we'll have to move on from this concept. And of course, you know, we're considering all kinds of different ways that we can help the community, including the business community, rebound from this crisis. So for the time being, I just ask that you would consider an indefinite deferral, and hopefully we can circle back to this at a later date.
I'll move for an indefinite deferral. Mims.
Second, Mazaher. Saleh.
All right, moved by Mims, seconded by Saleh. Council discussion. And this is for an indefinite deferral.
Yes.
Hearing none, roll call, please.
Weiner,
Yes.
Burgess,
Yes.
Mims,
Yes.
Salee,
Yes.
Taylor,
Yes.
Teague,
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 15, COVID-19 City Employee Pay Plan. Resolution authorizing the city manager to implement a city employee pay plan during the COVID-19 health crisis. Could I get a motion to approve the resolution?
Moved by Saleh.
Second, Thomas.
Moved by Saleh, seconded by Thomas. Council discussion. And actually, would anyone like to address this topic?
Yeah, Mayor, if I could, I'd like to just give a brief overview of the memo in the packet. And unsurprisingly, we have a little bit of new information here that I'd like to present tonight. So you all know the speed at which things are changing and have changed this past month has been incredible. And we've tried to adapt and maneuver as best that we can. So some of the things that we've done since the middle of March when this crisis really hit with us is that we expanded the use of paid sick leave for employees, particularly employees that are in those high-risk categories of being above the age of 60 and those with underlying health conditions that can increase the risk of serious complications from COVID-19. We also worked with our bargaining units to expand the sick leave bank provisions in their contracts and extended that to the non-bargaining folks as well. We have benefit protections that we've implemented during for any case in which there may be unpaid leave. We've implemented child care program for those employees that have had significant challenges with child care. And then the topic for tonight is what we're calling COVID-19 pay. So on March 24th, which was the Tuesday after the joint statement by the mayors encouraging people to stay home, the city took some drastic steps to maximize the number of people that we could have working from home too, and really tried to clear out a lot of our buildings and keep employees home to be consistent with that message. As you might imagine, there's some jobs that convert very well to working from home, and there's others in which the duties that they typically perform can't really be done, or at least not wholly done from their home. So in those cases where an employee cannot do 100% of their work, we have implemented a COVID pay, which is essentially a normal pay that they would get for any of those times in which they can't be completing their work. Now, as council is familiar, we have really two categories of employees. We have permanent employees and we have temporary employees. Our permanent employees are both full-time and part-time. They are fully benefited and tend to work very regular schedules throughout the year. Those employees, again, fall into that category of many can work from home at full capacity, but others may not be able to do that. So we do have permanent employees earning COVID pay, which is essentially paying them their regular salary when they may not be able to perform all those duties. Those permanent employees remain on call for us, so they have to be ready for duty during their regular shifts. If there's something that urgent that comes up at their place, at their department, they can be called in to complete those tasks. They could also be reassigned to different jobs, and they just generally must be available to work at any time. What we're really seeking guidance from council on tonight is the other category of employees. Those are our temporary employees, hourly employees, as they're sometimes referred to. These employees tend to work variable hour schedules, although we do have some that work fairly regular schedules in a couple of our operations. But again, many are seasonal in nature. These categories are not, or these positions, sorry, are not fully benefited like your permanent positions. They do get an hourly wage. Right now we have approximately 260 employees that are in this temporary category. What we decided to do in those days leading up to the March 24th date is extend full pay to those temporary employees through April 12th, which coincided with one of the governor's first orders. So we projected the hours to be paid to these employees by what they would have worked under typical working hours. And if that wasn't possible, we did a look back to see kind of what the average hours were. So the expense for us to do that from that March 24th period to April 12th, so a little less than 3 weeks, will roughly be $86,000 to keep those 260 employees on payroll. More than half of that, or 48,000 of that 86, is in our Recreation Division of Parks and Rec. And we've talked about that a lot in our conversations with council and temporary employees. The vast majority of our temporary employees do fall in the Parks and Recreation Department. So again, 48,000 of the 86,000 goes to our Recreation Division. The next biggest department or division would be the library. And the library has about 26,000 in temporary expenses for this, again, just shy of 3-week period. All the other departments and divisions only have a couple of employees or a handful of employees that fall into this category, and the commitment to those employees is less than $4,000 in each of those individual departments. So using that, a good rule of thumb going forward is it's about $25,000 to $30,000 a week to keep the roughly 260 employees on payroll. I'll stop there, and before I get into the next step in this, any questions on the difference between permanent and temporary and the costs of keeping the temporary folks on? Okay. So there is federal legislation, the stimulus legislation, or the CARES Act, that has been passed that expanded access to unemployment benefits. And what we've learned, the new information that we've learned since when we first put this report out last Thursday, we were under the assumption that the CARES Act benefit would not impact all unemployment applicants, and we weren't sure that they would impact the city the city employees if they were to seek unemployment. We've since learned that the federal benefit, which is an extra $600 per week, would be able to be extended to our temporary employees. So you have your regular state benefits, which can range anywhere from $87 to $591 per week, plus this new federal addition of $600 per week. What's very difficult for us to determine is what individual employees may be eligible for unemployment. We do know of those 260 that it's very likely that some of those employees would probably get paid more going the unemployment route, and they would receive actually more dollars going through the unemployment route than they would with the city. And there's others that probably would not. Unfortunately, there's no good way for us to analyze that because your unemployment benefits depend on a number of things, including your wages over the past 18 months, and that's total wages. So a lot of these employees may only be working 5, 10, 15 hours a week for us, which means they may have second jobs or third jobs, and that factors into unemployment benefits as well. And also, again, the number of dependents that you have can increase those level of benefits. So it's really difficult for us to say with any certainty that X number of the 260 would be compensated more through unemployment. But we do believe that certainly a number of the 260 would probably get paid more through the unemployment route. What we detailed in our memo to you are different options that we can take moving forward with our temporary employees. So I'll walk through those options and then I'll explain the recommendation that I have. The first option would be to continue to pay our temporary employees based on those projections and without a definitive end date. That again would be about $25,000 to $30,000 per week. Now those expenses are budgeted. We did anticipate those in our budget, and we would only be paying those employees that are still available to work. So for example, if we had somebody that maybe was a student here that was working and they have, maybe they're from out of state and they've moved back to their home state during this time as the semester was canceled, we wouldn't be compensating those individuals. These are folks that are here and otherwise would be ready and willing to work for us on those work schedules. The other date the other option would be to extend a pay through a date certain. And in our memo, we recommended May 16th. May 16th falls at the end of a pay period. So we'd really, just for ease of accounting, it would be good if we do set a date certain to utilize those pay period weeks so that we can end it within one pay period. That certainly would give some employees some certainty going forward. They will know exactly how long they will be compensated by the city, and they'll be able to take that time to prepare and investigate and apply for the unemployment benefits through the state of Iowa. The other option is to furlough those employees at the conclusion of the April 12th date that we previously committed to. So we could inform those employees next week that they need to go through the unemployment process, and we would certainly provide as much information as we could to help them through that process. So those are the three options we laid out. Now there's any number of other variables that you could introduce to a pay plan like this. You could cap the number of hours, and the university has taken some steps to cap hours with some of their similarly classified employees. So for example, you could say that we'll pay up to 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks or 80 hours or whatever your metric may be, then you'll need to go to the unemployment route. The other option would be to pay a portion of the wages and not pay full wages. We're not recommending either of those, but certainly I want to make you aware that there's almost an infinite number of possibilities. We did in our memo lay out the recommendation that we would continue to pay our hourly employees based on projected schedules through May 16th. We do have certainly the financial capacity to do that, and that's not a worry. That would give those employees just shy of about 2 months worth of pay if you're going back to March 24th, excuse me. So March 24th through May 16th is that COVID pay period there. It certainly, again, gives them some time to plan, some time to investigate their other opportunities for employment or the unemployment route. That said, we do know that there may be employees that as they learn about the unemployment benefits, they will say, why don't you let me go now, or why don't you furlough me now, because I'm actually going to be better off. And that's kind of where we're struggling with right now, because again, we can't perform that analysis for employees, and we can't really treat individual employees different. This really has to be a policy decision that can be carried out across entire work groups. We can't tell one lifeguard that they're going to be on furlough and keep another one based on their individual circumstances. So we have to be uniform in the way in which we apply this. And there's going to be people that kind of fall into either side, either better off on the furlough side or better off on the city pay side. So I'm comfortable with the May 16th date that we've set. But understand, given the CARES Act information that we've learned since this packet was issued, that if we want to scale that date back to a pay period, that would be May 13th. And again, we would only, I think we're all trying to take actions that are in the best interest of our employees, and unfortunately, that's a very tough call to make across an employee group of 260. We can certainly try to do that, but I think I'll stop there and open that up for council questions and discussion. And ultimately, what we're looking for in a resolution here is your direction on how you'd like us to move forward, and you're basically authority to me to implement that.
Jeff, I just want to ask you, do you have do you know exactly how much the highest hourly rate now for the temporary employees? If some people get 17 an hour, for example, or 15 an hour, what the highest?
I can probably pull that up here if you give me a little bit of time.
I just ask you this question because if I assume there is some employees get $17 an hour, which is most likely maybe less than that, and they work 40 hours a week, they will get around 680. And 680, of course, if they apply for unemployment, they will get less than a portion of the 60, like 13% of the 680 that they get every week, plus the $600. That's why I like the past 1 week I've been helping a lot of people for unemployment, and we have a lot of research about who is eligible, who is not eligible, and all this. That's why I think, personally, I believe they will be better off on the unemployment. But we as a city, I think we need just to move with your option. I don't want to talk about this now, but that's just my question is, we can discuss this later when it come to council discussion. But that's what I really want to ask you, because just by doing the math and adding the 600, it is really better for unemployment.
Yeah, the most of the wages, I'm looking through them now, fall between $11.50 up to about $14. We do have some at 16, 17, but I don't see any immediately higher than, we've got a couple at 18. That's probably the max that I'm flipping through here. But again, what's really difficult from the unemployment side is if you've got somebody working, let's say 20 hours a week at the library, making $14 an hour, $12 an hour, whatever it may be, we don't know if they're working 20 hours a week with another employer, making $20 a week or $20 an hour, $25. We also don't know their dependent situation, so it's hard for us to tell an employee to say, yes, you would be better off. It's really a determination that they would have to calculate with Iowa Workforce Development.
Yeah, that's why I'm not saying that you tell them that, no, of course not. If we come to the, council discussion, I would really support the extension of May, but with the option of telling them if somebody think that they will, getting become lay off, if they become lay off from the job, they will benefit more. They can request that. You know, I don't know how you can phrase it, but I mean, like, we as a city will pay you until May 16. But if you believe you will be better when you apply for unemployment, you can request that as well.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I mean, I agree that would be an ideal situation for an employee, but they're not going to be eligible for unemployment benefits, at least for the earnings that they would have with Iowa City, if they have an option to work here. So the way that unemployment works is it's only for those that do not have the ability to get paid or work for them. So that's where we get into trouble saying, you know, if a lifeguard A, if we're willing to pay lifeguard A, then lifeguard B falls into that same category. We can't tell lifeguard A to stay with us and lifeguard B to go through unemployment, because they're going to end up probably getting into some issues themselves by going through a process that they're not technically eligible for. So they have to be furloughed or laid off in order to get those benefits. And if we're leaving that door open to say, if you want to stay on our payroll, they're not going to be eligible for those benefits. I'm sorry, I didn't probably articulate that very well, but
I think yeah, I mean, it's like an all or none. Ideally, it would be nice to help the employees by giving them a choice if they could figure out which way they would be better, but based on unemployment law and qualifying for this, I think, as Jeff is saying, they have to be officially furloughed by the city, and we have to be consistent. So I think that's from the start when Jeff said we need to set a policy of going one way or the other. I've been going through this with some people as well, and as Jeff said, the difficulty is you don't know if somebody has another job, and then also the number of dependents can increase the amount, et cetera. I would venture that an awful lot of our hourly employees will be better off on unemployment because of that $600 per week CARES Act benefit. So I would be supportive of going no longer than May 16th. If people want to discuss a sooner date, I don't have a problem. One of the reasons I say May 16th is people can apply right away as soon as they're furloughed, but they're not necessarily going to get money right away. And I think the state is getting very backed up in the processing of unemployment. And this would at least give people a chance to know that, okay, I've got 4 more weeks of that income. I don't know exactly when the unemployment will actually come to me, but I know when I'll be eligible for it. I think at least it gives them a little bit of certainty for another roughly 4 to 5 weeks. So I would be supportive of that.
I'm fine with it as well. It seems like a good compromise.
I think one of the advantages to it is that if and I have no idea obviously what the future is going to hold, but if there are some things that can gradually be brought back online, those employees are still there. Whereas if they're already off the payroll, then there's another whole process to interview and bring folks back on.
Yeah, and just to clarify on that, we would seek to furlough the employees as opposed to terminate them. So we would hopefully create a situation in which they can come back as soon as we reopen, whether that's a day, a month, or 2 months.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
At this point, I'm more in favor of option number 2, and that just gives time for the employees to have knowledge of what might be coming down the pike and what that'll mean for them for unemployment benefits. Maybe that's something that they can kind of navigate. We of course can't be able to gauge how this would impact each employee. We know that some will benefit and some may not. And so I think that's just the reality. Furloughing makes the most sense, and so I guess tonight, option 2 would be my choice. And if I'm hearing correctly, I think I'm hearing other people saying option 2 as well, but I'll get clarity after everybody has had a chance to speak.
Yeah, option 2.
Yeah, could I just ask if we have any idea what other communities in the county are doing? Not that see if, just to get a sense of where we are in that mix.
I can't speak for certain. I explored this with my counterparts in Coralville and North Liberty around the time that we extended it to April 12th, so probably late March. And it was my understanding at that time that they were not going to pay similarly positioned temporary employees going forward, but I would have to verify that as I know things are changing by the hour, and they could have pivoted and changed direction at that time. But my guess is if I were to kind of survey other communities, that your lifeguard positions again and your rec folks, which are the vast majority, would have been just not extended any hours going forward, essentially furloughed from the get-go.
I really would like just to say that we really being setting the standard very high by providing the wages for all our employees, whether they are permanent or temporary employee or seasonal employee. I think really we're doing the right thing right now, and I appreciate all the work that Jeff did and the staff together to come up with all these ideas and figuring out how much hours people work, all this like hard work you have done. And for speaking about other communities, at least we can look at the model of the school board did, Janice. That the school is paying for everyone right now. Even if you are a long-time sub, they pay you. And I guess they also doing very good job. And we are doing the same thing. I'm really proud of our city by paying our people. Yeah, very.
I agree with all of those comments, and it's pretty great to me that we're having a conversation where I think everyone is on the same page that we want to do what's best for the employee, and no one, I think, has any qualms with the concept of someone being able to get more benefits from unemployment. So I commend us for that. Jeff, just to clarify, are you, given the additional information since the packet came out, do you have a different recommendation than May 16th?
No, I think May 16th provides those employees an opportunity to plan. I anticipate that we're probably going to hear from some of them that would probably like us to change their, to furlough because they know that they can access more. But we've been wringing our hands on this one. There's just no way to kind of customize this for individual employees. So I think May 16th is a fair date. And I forget which counselor mentioned it, but the state does have quite a backlog now. So it's a little uncertain when those extra benefits will be coming out. And this provides some protection if those employees are really living paycheck to paycheck during this interim time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That sounds good to me.
Ms. Pauling, me too.
Well, if I heard correctly, everybody was interested in number 2.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So that's what we're going to vote on tonight. So roll call, please. Can't hear you, Eleanor.
Where's Eleanor?
Who is that?
We lost him.
Burgess.
Yes.
Mims.
Yes.
Salee.
Yes.
Taylor.
Yes.
Teague.
Yes.
Thomas.
Yes.
Weiner.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 16A is going to be Civil Service Commission. 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term upon appointment through April 4th, 2022. council discussion on this item. So there are 2 applicants with no gender balance. And what do people think?
This is Pauline, and as we talked about last meeting, we made a civil service appointment or reappointment as such, and Councilwoman Mims mentioned that the Civil Service Commission in particular has kind of somewhat unique needs and almost needs someone that can jump right in. And no offense to these 2 applicants, they're very worthy of, they said their preference is Human Rights Commission, and I think that both of them would fit very well in that. And my belief is I don't like leaving the Civil Service Commission short, but I would hesitate to make an appointment, just be making an appointment. So I don't think either one would be really good fit for the Civil Service Commission.
I would agree, Pauline. I did comment before that, I mean, the Civil Service Commission can do certain things like, people do the testing and they certify them and it's pretty routine. But if we ever get any employment issues related to civil service, that's a whole different ball of wax, and needing people who really have some experience and some expertise there. So if we agree not to appoint, I will make a real effort in the next week or so to dig around with my contacts and see if we can find somebody with some skill set and qualifications to get their application in. But I would agree with Pauline on this.
How many people we have in there?
Only
There's
2.
There's 2 applicants, then it's only a commission of 3 people.
Oh, but I mean, like, commission of 3. We already have 3. 2.
We have 2. We only have 2.
And the 2 are qualified. You think like they have experience?
We just reappointed the second one, Mr. Weiss, last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Rick Weiss certainly has the experience. I actually, off the top of my head, don't know who the other one is at the moment, so I don't know their background as much, but I know Rick's.
Yeah, because I really don't know the names. That's why I. Okay.
In our report, it's a Melissa Jensen, whose term expires next year, so she must have been on there for a couple of years.
Melissa Jensen, yeah, and the Vilken and Richards. It's 2022, okay. I just feel like if we have 2 of them, they have experience, and the third could be somebody who's gonna learn from them.
I would note that particularly in cases where there's an appeal of a discipline, because my office typically cannot represent the commission, it's been their practice to hire outside counsel. So they have advice from in those situations, and that's really where they need that advice.
I see. Okay, maybe we can postpone it.
There is, as you know, a hearing that's will not go forward until we have 3 commissioners.
But Eleanor, is that okay if we know that some people apply for it? We can just not appoint them because we think we need people who are really have experience on this. Is that like legally okay?
Yes, it's a discretionary appointment. If you think that, I mean, obviously it can't be based on any protected characteristics, but if you think you need more experience on this particular commission, that's certainly, you're right.
Sure, then I guess we can defer it, or what do you guys think?
Well, my understanding is their preference would be to work on another commission. So in that regard, I'm supportive of the idea of holding on.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I read both of the applications, and I guess Amanda Nichols, she's been in town for a while. I agree that when we're talking about holding hearings and really talking about people employment and that type of stuff, I feel that you have to have some experience on some level. Definitely, I think both of the applicants could be great in Human Rights Commission. That's where it's appeared to have their first option and even experience. So I am okay if we delay this, but
Yeah,
I think we do need to find someone.
Yes, especially the commission is only 3 people. If it's like more people, so it doesn't matter, but 3 people, we need people with experience.
Do we ever give applicants the opportunity to speak to council about their application?
They can call us. And they're encouraged to, email us, call us.
Yeah.
And we can also reach out to them as well.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm just thinking if either of the folks who applied really are interested in serving on this commission and think that, we're maybe not reading enough into their applications, it'd be great to maybe hear a little bit more from them.
And I think this is also another example of when we have applications that are rather sparse in detail. Unless I missed something, I didn't recall a whole lot of detail about interest or experience, maybe a one sentence here or there, but not a whole lot there.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that's what we're missing is some detail. I guess I would be okay with deferring this and see what happens.
We call it deferral. We call it just like extend the time.
Well, if we extend the time, then if there are any more applicants that will come through, or even with the deferral.
I will work on it.
Maybe we'll have Eleanor kind of.
Kelly?
Yeah.
What can you speak to this timing issue?
Well, I mean, we've already done the required 30-day notice, so we could defer it to the next meeting. We could do 2 meetings out. I mean,
But we'll continue to accept applications, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's open until filled.
Okay. So these 2 will stay on the table and we'll see if we get anything else before the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
So deferring to the 21st.
Yep.
Okay.
So I'm going to get a motion to defer until the 21st.
Move. Saleh.
Second by Mims.
Roll call, please.
Mims?
Yes.
Salee?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Weiner?
Yes.
Burgess?
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0. Item number 17, announcements of vacancy new. Airport Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 4-year term, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2024. Community Police Review Board, 2 vacancies to fill a 4-year term, July 1 through June 30th, 2024. Community Police Review Board, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term effective upon appointment through June 30th, 2023. Historic Preservation Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term, July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Historic Preservation Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Historic Preservation Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term, July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Housing and Community Development Commission, 3 vacancies to fill a 3-year term, July 1, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Planning and Zoning Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 5-year term, June 1, 2020 through June 30th, 25. Telecommunications Commission, 2 vacancies to fill a 3-year term, July 1st, 2020 through June 30th, 2023. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 12th, 2020. We are at item number 18, announcement of vacancies previous. Public Art Advisory Committee, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Applications must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, April 14th, 2020. Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term. Historic Preservation Commission, 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term. Vacancies will remain open until filled. We are at item number 19 with Austin Wu. I think I saw you.
Before you go there, Mayor, if you don't mind, I just would like to ask Kelly if she can reach out to Wifaq Mohammed and Amanda Nichols about another positions in the city. So if they are interested.
Oh, as far as the other openings?
Yes.
Yeah, sure. We've got, they'll get something anyway saying that it's been deferred to the 21st. So we can also put a statement in there about checking the website for additional vacancies that are currently open.
Okay.
All right. Austin Wu, are you on still?
Yes, I am. I don't have very much. The only thing I really have to say is that the university is now in its 2nd week of all online course instruction. And it was confirmed today that commencement activities will also be taking place virtually in some form, to be determined in the future. But that's all I have for today. Thanks.
Great. All right, City Council, anyone have any updates? I'll just let you chime. Well, should I just let people chime in or should I go around? Very little updates these days.
Ms. Pauline, I have nothing.
I'm just sheltering and distancing, so nothing from me.
I did help with free lunch on Friday with a different group, which is an entirely different experience right now, but everybody still needs to be fed. And I would point out that, and this is for everybody across the board, that you can request an absentee ballot now for the June 2nd primary. All you have to do is print out the form from the auditor's office and send it in, or they have a drop box there. So to help to continue the physical or social distancing, I would encourage everybody to get an absentee ballot.
And I just want to say that on this Friday, we're going to have, CWJ will have a live meeting. I encourage you guys to attend. It's online Zoom. But my question will be to Eleanor, what about if 4 council come on Zoom for any kind of meeting? Is that possible or no?
Oh, and here you.
Muted.
Sorry. I think the rules would be the same for Zoom meetings as they are for any other meeting. If it's a meeting that involves city business or is a topic that the city council could be asked to weigh in on, there shouldn't be more than 3 of you there. And if there are, you should be tree stumps, meaning you don't participate.
Oh, okay.
Just the same as when you're in person.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Not that a lot of people are watching at this time of the evening, Mayor, but just in case people missed the work session where we did have a good update on COVID-19 and sort of the state of how things are with the pandemic in our community. And so I just wanted to take this chance to reiterate that Governor Reynolds did close additional businesses and reinforce the stay at home even if you're not sick. So please, for people to limit any movement to only essential activities, to stay home if you can stay home, to not gather in groups and that I think, as Eleanor let us know during the work session, that if people are gathering in groups, like you see a birthday party in someone's front yard, that it would be appropriate to try and prevent that from happening, including the possibility of engaging the city or law enforcement to disperse a group if that was necessary. So I just wanted to make that more clear, since there's been a lot of questions and a lot of changing in terms of what's been closed by the governor or not. So thank you to everyone for staying home, not touching your face, washing your hands all the time, covering your cough, and social distancing. And the CDC is also recommending masks when you're out and about now as well. So face coverings of some kind. Thank you, Janice. We stopped. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, you just sound like you did another Facebook Live. So
every day.
Thanks to all of the counselors that have been doing the Facebook Live. That's been very helpful at spreading the message throughout the community. And so continue to do that. And of course, many of you know that I've been doing community connections, have had some great guests on there. Jeff Fruin was the mighty warrior guest of today. And so that was released, and really appreciate being able to communicate with our community, all the things that are happening during COVID-19. I think people are appreciating whatever message it is, and resources that are being offered during this time. I think any communication, no matter if it's in text or video, I think is appreciated and needed throughout our community. The other thing that I want to mention is Census 2020. So we need you out there to get our numbers up. So Austin, I don't know if you're still on here, but with those students that are gone, we need them to fill out their 2020 census. So community is very important, that we recognize that the census count really does, if we get a full count, it really does bring funds in our community that is well needed. And I hope Ashley will kind of touch base on that a little bit. So I'll leave it at that. And I've been in meetings here and there, but nothing that I wanted to just make mention right now. So anybody else? I think that was everybody.
Yeah.
All right.
I just want to say we did release some social media posts directing students that on April 1st to mark their address as Iowa City, even if they're back home with their parents.
Great. Thank you. All right. We're going to go to item number 21A, City Manager Jeff Fruin.
I'll give Ashley my time.
Great. All right.
Well, the mayor started addressing the census before I could get to it. Everyone can still safely and securely fill out their census form. It took me about 5 to 6 minutes. You can do that by phone, by internet, at your computer, on your cell phone, whatever you choose as a device. Mailings are still coming in the mail, so residents should have gotten a couple of reminders, paper mailers, saying go online to fill out your census at 2020census.gov. Just go to that main page and it'll start you off right there. And then the actual letters or paper forms are still going to be coming in transit through the mail system in the next couple of weeks. So complete that census while you're home. Thank you.
Great. City Attorney Eleanor.
Nothing. I'm proud of all of us for making this happen. Despite my problems with the mute button. So, congratulations to all of you.
Yes. Kelly, our city clerk.
I have nothing.
All righty. Anyone else for the good of the cause? Hearing none. Could I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Salee. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? We're adjourned.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.